So today I wanted to look through a couple of LinkedIn articles that touch on some themes that I've been seeing recently, and I think not necessarily I'm getting bothered by them, but I thought it was an interesting kind of focus, and it's something that I've been thinking about a lot because I find myself sort of disagreeing with the stance that we see in these, and actually there's one article or one post in particular that I thought was pretty insightful, and I think I was a little bit more aligned with. It seems like someone else is agreeing. And the topic of discussion is going to be comparing things like leadership with, the leadership versus manager, or like boss versus leader, that kind of thing, and sort of pitting these two things against each other. I see this a lot. I don't really agree with it. I think I understand where it comes from, but I wanted to chat through a couple of posts today. So let's go flip over to LinkedIn. We'll read through it, and then I'll give some analysis on that. All right, so the first post that we're going to be looking at comes from Jason Kaplan. Again, I just want to call out that this is nothing, we're going to look at two posts, but nothing about these individuals am I trying to call out from them specifically. I just wanted to go through some of the content because I think that this is applicable with other posts that I see. So this one is really saying, boss is someone who tells people what to do, how to do it, and the people follow blindly. It's kind of starting off by saying like a boss is basically a bad thing, and then the leader encourages people to do their jobs with guidance, support, direction, motivation. So it's really like, boss is the bad thing, we need leaders. And then it has this graphic below that kind of again, like pits the two against each other. So, boss has all these bad things like demands, needs control, ultimatums, focuses on I, uses people, right? Micromanages. And then leader on the other side is all these like positive spins on the same thing. And I see this a lot, right? Like you'll see micromanage versus empower. I personally think that people are putting out content like this kind of just to get interactions. I'm kind of hopeful at this point that people understand that we need the stuff on the right. We need the leadership characteristics here, but the reality is, and I just don't think that it's fair to be saying like boss is a bad thing. Like I have a boss. My manager is technically my boss. And I think that they are also a leader. I don't think that these things, these titles, are mutually exclusive. And I think that's where I start to have a bit of a challenge with this kind of phrasing and this framing. So I don't think this is necessarily me just being pedantic about this. I think that, like I said, I think people are putting out content like this to get engagement and interactions and stuff like that. That's fine, but I just want to start maybe drawing attention to the fact that like these are not mutually exclusive titles, right? The next article we look at, the next post, is going to touch on this as well, where it's comparing managers to leaders, right? Like I am a manager by title, but I also hope that I lead people. And you can also see that you can have individual contributors that are great informal leaders. So they don't have to be these like mutually exclusive things. So on the boss versus leader thing, just to kind of summarize my point on this is I think that you can have bosses that are amazing leaders, right? A boss is just someone that you report to. A boss does not necessarily carry all of these negative connotations, just the way a manager should not carry all these negative connotations. It's quite literally a title and a role. It's a relation, right? So should not carry the negative connotation. But I would say that if you have someone in this position who is supposed to be a leader, the traits that these things start to call out in these diagrams or when you see these comparisons and stuff online, of course, they have these positive traits. These are the things that we're looking for in good bosses, in good managers, because they're leadership traits, right? I'm just kind of glancing back over at the post here, but like you want leaders that coach people, right? They're not demanding things of people. You want leaders that are going to develop people. That's just the nature of it. But something else, and again, we're going to see it in this next post, is that you're going to have a little bit of both sides of this. There are going to be situations where you have a great leader who is constantly trying to develop people and get the most out of it. And when it comes to business, there will be situations where they may have to ask a little bit more of their team. And when you have a really good relationship with your team and you have a good trust, a lot of respect between you and your team, there are going to be situations where you lean on them a little bit more, and they're there for you because they know that you're there to support them the rest of the time. So I just want to call out that, when we start to look at some of these other things, like on the negative side of the, the boss spectrum, where they're saying like, oh, demands things of people. I don't demand things of my team, but there are situations where I will say to my team, like, we have really tight deadlines, and maybe I need to ask a little bit more of people. And I think that when you try to tapping into the well of like extra energy there, when you have, like I said, when you have really good trust relationships and respect with your team, I think that you can pull on that a little bit because your team trusts you, they respect you, and they know that that's not a common thing that you're always trying to do. So just wanted to kind of mention that. Let's go ahead and jump over to this other post that talks about management versus leadership. All right, this one is from Steve Wood. It says, in our analysis of what good leadership looks like, we really need to stop the comparison with management and increasing the trend of belittling the importance of management skills in that analysis. So I'm not going to read through this whole post. I'm just going to kind of glean a couple of things out of here. If a manager is responsible for people, that's not necessarily the case, then to be equipped with good leadership skills is hugely important. But they need both the functional skills of management and the people skills of leadership to be effective. So what this person's getting at is that oftentimes when we're talking about people in management roles, yes, they're responsible for people. Of course, they're people managers. However, it's not always the case where it's completely isolated to just developing people. A lot of the time, these people managers, say in an engineering manager role, the expectation is that you're also responsible for projects and business deliverables as well. So it's two sides of it. Now, this individual, Steve Wood, is kind of trying to say that if we scroll down, he has a diagram here. So he talks about the management side of things being more about like project oriented, right? And then the leadership side being the more people related side of things. So if we look at the left-hand side, managers are organizing, aligning with objectives, direct line responsibility. So again, these are like business deliverables, right? And then on the right-hand side, we see leaders. So you're inspiring, you're challenging, supporting, serving others first. So it's really about like focusing on the people side of things and your direct reports. But you'll notice as you go through these, if you're thinking about traditional engineering manager roles, you need all of the stuff that's in here, right? Again, we see these other comparisons where people are, it's not, obvious in this one because I don't think this individual, Steve Wood, is saying like, managers are bad, but you'll see these other comparisons where it's like people basically try to do the boss versus leader thing where it's like managers are the ones that demand things of people and leaders are the ones that do all these like, hero things for their teams. And the reality is that when you're trying to be, fulfilling an engineering manager role, and this isn't just applicable to engineering management, but when you have this dual responsibility role, you have a responsibility to business deliverables and to the people that you're developing. And that often means that you are trying to ride this line that's kind of in the middle of, how do you plan effectively to get things done? How do you make sure that the people that you have working on these projects are motivated by them, they're challenged by them, they're learning from them, and they're engaged and growing from them, while at the same time able to deliver on them effectively, right? It's not an easy balance, but you need sides from both here. So I'll keep this video pretty short, but I really just wanted to start trying to draw some attention to, this mutual exclusion between bosses versus leaders and managers versus leaders, where you have this spectrum where leadership is all of the perfect good things and management and bosses are all these negative things that we need to avoid. The reality is, in my opinion, that people that are in management roles should be responsible. I mean, it depends on your role, obviously, but if you're responsible for people as well, then you are riding this line between the two worlds of trying to focus on business deliverables as well as growing and leading people. In my opinion, the best way to get, the most productivity and the best value out of people is to grow them. It is to motivate them, have them engaged, have them challenged. Investing into people, in my opinion, so doing all of these awesome leadership things, allows you to be a better manager when it comes to trying to get projects done on time, or if you need to have a crunch time and you need to rely more on your team to have a little bit more output. All of these good leadership traits, in my opinion, afford you this opportunity where you have a lot of trust and respect with your team, and that you can go a little bit further with that. So I just wanted to kind of touch on these two posts because they seem more relevant to me in some of the content I'm seeing recently. And I don't think that there's this spectrum where you can only focus on the people leadership and all of these other things are bad. It is really kind of both sides of the coin. So that's just some perspective from me today, from an engineering manager. Curious to see what your opinions are on this. Sound off in the comments. I'd be happy to kind of have a discussion with you. So thanks for watching. Hope you found this valuable, and we'll see you next time.